it was a really good first take.
It was a great first take. And so we're now recording. I'm actually going to leave all this open stuff right on the video so people know what happens behind the scenes.
I love it.
So in any case, hey, everybody, this is Renessa Boley Layne, and I want to welcome you to another conversation around creating your perfect work. So if you follow me, then you know that I'm all about helping you discover, design, and get highly paid to do work you love. Whether that means radically changing careers, launching a business, or bringing this big message, movement, or idea to life. So today we are going to talk about sales. If you didn't hear me, sales, S-A-L-E-S. And before you think that this has nothing to do with your career, if you're a career professional, it has everything to do with your career, has everything to do with your business. No matter what perfect work looks like for you, every job is a sales job. And so I am so excited to talk about that today, because the reality is, if you're going to succeed in a pivot, and if you're going to earn more money, and if you're going to get your message out into the world, and if you got to learn how to make the sale, no matter what. We've got to learn how to get buy-in. We've got to learn how to get people to support us. We've got to learn how to get our spouses on board, to that big dream. We've got to be willing to ask for what we want. And so I'm so delighted for our guest today, because she's going to teach us how to do that. So this beautiful woman on the other side of the screen here is Dr. Cindy McGovern. And I'm going to give you the skinny about who she is and all that good stuff. And then I'm going to tell you, as I always do, what I really think about her. And then you're going to get the good stuff. But Dr. Cindy is known as the First Lady of Sales. So she is the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of a book called Every Job is a Sales Job. She speaks and she consults internationally on sales, on interpersonal communication, and leadership. She leads an organization called Orange Leaf Consulting. It's a sales management and consulting firm based in San Francisco. Woohoo! And she's helped hundreds of companies and individuals to create dramatic and sustainable growth. So that's all the neat and buttoned up stuff. So let me get really, really real. Here's the deal. I would follow Dr. Cindy to the moon and back. Oh. And here's what I love about Cindy. She is literally the walking epitome of what she teaches. When I invited her to be on this show, and I handpicked people who I thought would just add so much richness to the conversation around creating your perfect work and creating work you love. And when I asked her to be on the show, it was as if she was more grateful and excited to be invited than I was to have her. And I was pretty excited to have her on the show. And there was just an enthusiasm and a warmth that was there, that I was like, this woman is a force for good, and I would follow her to the moon and back. And so she's definitely someone that you are blessed to be able to learn from today. More importantly, though, I've encountered lots of folks who teach sales, sales consultants and those and all of that, and they're great folks. But what I love about Cindy is that she teaches people who are not sales folks and who never would ever want to be a salesperson, how to really leverage our influence to get more of what we truly want in our work and our life. And when it comes to creating your perfect work, we need all of what she has to say. And so with that, I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm excited that you're here, and I'm looking forward to diving into your content. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
No, thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. I was so thrilled and beyond honored to be asked to be on this show. And this is something that I feel very passionate about, is helping other women to live their best life and do what they want to make them happy and actually get paid for it. So I am thrilled to be a part of this. And I can't wait to share these ideas and really empower the ladies who are watching this series.
Awesome. And there's all kind of men who kind of slipped on in.
I love it. This is so y'all too.
You can leverage that masculine side as well. But so the first question, I think, and I ask lots of folks this question because the conversation is around creating your perfect work. It's finding, and by perfect work, I don't mean that it's all hunky-dory and it's all rosy. By perfect work, I mean that you're doing the career business that you feel like you were born to do. Like, this is what you were designed to do. This is the impact you're supposed to make in the marketplace. And it can take a lot of different forms. But I know, for you, you made a pivot in your career. So you started out as a professor. And so you were in academia and all of that. And so how do you know because that's vastly different than what you're doing now. So how do you know that the work that you're doing now is the work that you're meant to do now? Like, why did you make that switch? Give us the backstory as to how you ended up here.
Yeah. So you're right. I started as a college professor and I thought that was my life's work. Honestly, like I had gone to school for a PhD in communication. I thought my lane was supposed to be helping these students to go out and have successful careers. And then in that, I realized I liked teaching adults. And so I started to pivot to doing more consulting work in the summers, and then did my first pivot was to a full-time consulting job. Okay. And I was doing corporate training and coaching. And in that is where a pivot was handed to me in terms of sales. And I ended up in a sales role. And what happened was I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. Like, I can't do sales. I'm not, like, you guys hired me to do communication, management consulting. I did some sales consulting, but I'm not a salesperson. Mm-hmm. And as I started to get into that role and I realized, oh, wait a second, I can do this. Mm-hmm. That is when I actually discovered my life's work, which is to get everyone to realize they can use the skills of sales professionals to get what they want and they deserve. And oh, by the way, this is a skill set you already have. You just don't recognize it. And so it was sort of this pivot upon pivot upon pivot mm-hmm. to get me to this point to go, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is now why I was put on this earth. I am here to change the way that we look at sales. I am here to empower people to use that skill set. I mean, by the time I'm done, we may need another word for it. It may not even be sales by the time I'm finished.
So this is not a question I was going to ask you, but for a lot of folks that are listening in the conversation, many of them have invested a lot in whatever their current direction happens to be, right? And when you're talking about PhD in, was it communications? I think you got
communication. Mm-hmm.
That's quite an investment of time, of money, of all of that. And so to then end up in a sales, not just a sales role, but like this is now your business, is all about sales and teaching and training and all of that. That does not invalidate, I don't know if that's such a word, invalidate everything that you've done in the past. Like, there's a building upon that. And so for women who are listening to you, who might think that whatever it is that they're thinking about doing next, or this kind of whisper in their heart, is such a huge pivot from where they were, and that everything else is kind of lost in the background, what can you share about how the pieces of your life actually really integrate so seamlessly for the work that you're doing now, if that question makes sense?
It's a perfect question. And I can honestly tell you, I couldn't do the work I'm doing today if I had not gone through those twists and turns. Mm-hmm. It's not possible. And it's funny because when you're writing your book, as you well know, when I got to the publishers and they're like, well, why do you tell this story? There's a gazillion sales books out there. Why are you the person? I said, because I lived it. Mm-hmm. I went through this. Like, I know how I felt about sales in the beginning. I know that I thought I was supposed to be on this path and then realized, oh, wait a second, mm-hmm. I need to be over here. So to answer the question, it's the fact that I did go through it, and I know where every one of your listeners is feeling. You're like, okay, I have this idea, but I've spent 15 years on this path. For everybody that's listening, I was the president of the company that I left. Mm-hmm. I get it. So I was a professor, quit that, went and became a president, quit that, started a consulting firm, still have it, but then decided to write a book. So, yeah. I mean, it's having that passion of the message that has driven me. And I think that's the thing that's allowed me to give myself permission to make these strides and to do this, is because this message is too important to keep to myself. It's a lesson that should have been taught to us in high school, and it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In your book, and I devoured loads of pieces of it. So folks, you see it in the background, every job is a sales job, that big orange thing, go get that. But in your book, you say there are 3 important truths about sales. You say that, you are a salesperson. You should be selling every single day, and selling will help your career or business. And there are more than a few people listening in who are scared to death about that just the whole concept. Tell us more about what you mean in that comment, and why it's something that we really need to take to heart.
So I, like many of the folks listening, hated sales. I had this misconception of what it was. And my persona in my mind was, I call him Johnny Two Thumbs, but it's like the guy with the plaid pants coming at you across the used car lot, like, hey, what's it going to take to get you today? And that was my definition of sales. And I thought, I'm never going to be that. I don't want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I recognized is, wait a second, I already sell every day. I just don't call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually good at it because I've gotten jobs in the past. An interview is a sales conversation. I've convinced my friends to go for a salad instead of pizza. That's also sales. I've convinced my spouse to, stay in versus going out. That's also sales. So there's all these pieces in your life where you're selling every day. You're just not recognizing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would say is that if you're looking to figure out how you can get ahead in your career, in creating this pivot for yourself, for really living that perfect life of work, know that you have this skill set already.
Mm-hmm.
It's just re-tapping into it. And the way that I describe it, and I'm sure you read this in the book, but is that we were all 5 at one point.
Yeah.
5-year-olds are the best salespeople on the planet.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They will wear you down to get that cookie or that toy.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we were all 5 once.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't something that you don't have within you. You have this skill set.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing it and re-embracing it, and honestly reinvigorating it to help you get on that path to get what you want. And that's what I want to do. I want people to recognize this and reinvigorate them to go after it.
Got it. So there is this, you also say that we have learned limitations and fear when it comes to asking for what we want, what we need, and what we deserve. And especially at times of making pivots or thinking about making changes, we need and want things that we never thought we would actually need or want. Like, we need support, we need doors opened, we need connections, we need all kinds of things that perhaps 5 years ago or 10 years ago on our nice little comfortable path, we didn't even really think about. But there are lots of limiting beliefs and fears around that. Tell us more about what you see, particularly in women, because it may manifest differently in women than it does in men. But tell us more about what you see around that.
So there's a piece of the work with women that I do, and I call it the permission mission. And it's basically giving yourself permission to go after what you want and deserve. And it is learned limited beliefs. That 5-year-old couldn't care less whether you thought they needed a cookie.
That's true.
You wanted a cookie.
Yeah.
And she wasn't afraid to go after it. But because at some point in our lives, we were told no. Yeah, or at some point we were told we didn't deserve it, or how dare you ask for that, or we were made to feel smaller because we wanted something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Those are learned belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
And what I invite you to do is take those off. That's clothes that somebody else put on you.
Yeah.
That's not what you're that's not why you're here. That's actually weighing you down and patting you from actually letting your inner light shine. So I invite you to look at this and say, okay, what did that 5-year-old want? Okay, as a grown woman now, what does my inner 5-year-old want?
Yeah.
And recognizing that it is still there, that desire is there, and then naming the beliefs around it. And this is an exercise I do a lot with women that I'm coaching even, is where did you get the belief in the first place? Who told you no?
Mm-hmm.
Who told you that wasn't allowed? And if you can identify where it was, maybe it was your grandmother, maybe it was your, an old boyfriend or a teacher or an old boss, like who knows where it came from?
Yeah.
Identify it. That voice served you at one point in your career, probably not serving you anymore.
Right.
Thank it, honor it, and put it in its place so you can go get what you want.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think that there's something to be said about getting to the point where we give ourselves permission to desire something different, something new, something better. It may not be bigger, it just may be different, right? So we get to that place where we own that desire, but then there's still this fear. And no matter how big you get, no matter how much money you make, no matter how much success you may have amassed over the years, there's often still this fear of rejection when it comes to asking for whatever, whether it's asking for referrals for your business, whether it's asking, friends and colleagues to connect you to somebody that they may know who you think could be great. How do we overcome that fear of rejection? How do we because it's gonna come, right? It's like that. It's gonna come. Many times over, And so in your walk and in your life, how do you deal with that?
This is one of the hard pieces, and it's knowing that it's going to come. I believe there's comfort in that.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be smooth sailing, even if you are on the absolute right path. Like, it's funny, when I decided to write this book, there were definite hurdles, getting an agent and then finding a publisher. But I was probably told no a gazillion times. That actually fueled me because I felt the passion in it, but I had prepared myself. I knew the chances were like this big that I would get, a publisher on my first try kind of thing. I knew the chances were this big that I'd get somebody to really buy into this crazy idea of taking sales out of the boardroom and putting it in more like the classroom. And so I think if you know it's coming, that's number one. And then the second thing that I would also say is it's a perfectly acceptable response. And we forget that. We so internalize the no, and we're like, oh gosh, she said no. Oh, it's over. No, it's not. You tell people no all day.
That's right.
I mean, you have to remember that is just a word in our vernacular.
Yeah.
And that it's okay. And it's not personal most of the time.
Yeah.
It's not the right introduction at that moment. It's not they can't give the support that you're asking for in that moment, whatever it is. But you got to look at it as, okay, that's not the door I'm supposed to go into now.
Yeah.
I got to keep knocking. And so that's why I say, like, get that resolve of knowing the no's are coming.
Yeah.
Even when you are on the right path.
Yeah. It's so interesting because someone said, and I don't know where I got it from, I wish I could attribute it correctly, but someone said that rejection it's bottom line is that rejection is just direction. Like, it tells you where to go. Like, okay, well, obviously this isn't the door. So let me, like you said, knock on the next one, because this is telling me where my direction happens to be.
Yeah.
If I shared how many people I reached out to about this series, people would be like, are you kidding me? And I remember when I decided to pull it together, a mentor of mine was like, you want 21 experts, you need to reach out to 100 people. And I was like, God, are you kidding me? She was right.
That's right.
I mean, just in terms of just scheduling aligned and it resonating and like all of that kind of stuff.
The timing,
blah, blah, blah. And so the reality is, had I taken that stuff personally, I mean, man, I've been in the tubes, right? And so, but it's hard not to, because we often think it is personal and there's some issue with me, or this or that or the other, and the reality is some will, some won't. Sometimes it is an issue of someone's perceived value of you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end all be all. But it's a hard one to master.
And even if they don't see the value, that doesn't mean you don't have it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in my book, I talk about the steps, and step one is that plan piece, and having a plan. You need to plan for the fact that you're going to get told no. Yeah. You need to plan for how you're going to respond to that no, because I actually think it's a gift.
Yeah.
You can learn from it. If I came to you and I asked you for help or an introduction and you didn't give it to me, I want to learn from why that wasn't a fit for today. Yeah. And maybe I didn't give you enough first.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't sell myself enough to you.
Yeah.
There's feedback there that we need to take in from that no to help you when you get to that right door. And it's funny because when you were talking, there was a quote that came to me, which I also wish I could attribute appropriately, but it's something along the lines of, it's not getting the right opportunities, it's handling the opportunities right.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is that preparation and having that plan. And sometimes it's the fact that you got told no. And we've heard stories about celebrities, like how many people sent out demo tapes and were, just rejected from every label. And then they're, an overnight success 10 years later,
Yeah. Overnight success, right?
10 years later, but yeah.
But it's true. So here's something that I thought was interesting. In your book, you say that part of sales is talking about what you do and who you are, and making sure that you're having those conversations with people so that they know, and you begin to plant the seeds. And I want to center this point home around the topic of creating work you love, because for a lot of people, when you're pivoting or you're creating your perfect work, you're at a place of transition. And so it can be really hard to talk about where you want to go or where you want to be or this business you want to start or this idea you have, in part because you're not totally clear on what all that is. You're not totally certain around whether or not you can do it.
Yeah.
So the level of confidence that may come with where you are, whatever that role happens to be, your senior director of whatever, you may not have that same level of confidence in this new space, right? And I remember when I was, early on in my business, I didn't know who the hell I was. Like, I was just, I would coach you on anything: weight loss, find a man, get a job, like whatever, right? Life coach, business coach, success coach, whatever. But I was really insecure about who I was in the marketplace, and I wasn't certain about that. And I remember going into networking conversations or alumni events or talking to people, and I would just be like, please don't ask me what I do, because I don't know. And it was really uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable for a long time. So how do you advise, women that may be listening in? Because I do think it's important to talk about who you are, talk about what you're doing, what projects you're, because that is what aligns people to, be able to support you. But how do you do that when you're in a point of transition? Like, how do you get that confidence? How do you reframe that so that you're coming from a place of power?
So it's such a good question. And I felt that too. I quit my job in the bottom of the real estate market to start a company. Then it was like, what am I doing? And trying to find your footing.
Yeah.
But I think that's also where the rejection is really powerful, because it pushes you to the path you're supposed to be on.
Okay.
So if you start telling people, I do this, and you're getting, what are you doing? Okay. Then that's feedback that you go, okay, I need to tell that story differently. I need to come at this differently. So that's where I do think the rejection or even just the side eye is helpful. Yeah. But I do think that a lot of it is having to do with what your mission is. Why do you want to do this? And I think a lot of women, especially who are pivoting, they're good at something. Like, you want to go be a coach. You can help people, but you're not clear on that path yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe you do need to go out there and practice. Maybe you do need to get out there and start telling your story in a different way and see what that feedback is. And another thing too is talk to the people you have helped, help them to craft your story with you. Yeah. Because sometimes outside of us, people can see things that we can't.
That is true.
And they can point it out to you and be like, listen, this is what you're actually amazing at. Or they can say it in a turn of phrase that like. That's how I ended up being known as the first lady of sales. Like, somebody said something around that, and I was like, well, that's pretty good. Wait a second, I want to hold on to that. So I think that's a part of it. But the thing that I would tell everybody that's listening is sit with yourself and sit with that discomfort.
Yeah.
And be okay with it. And I think that's the piece, is you're not supposed to come out of the box knowing exactly the perfect company or the perfect practice you're supposed to have. Even like, think about like when you start yoga, you can't do a headstand. I still can't do a headstand. So you're practicing it. Give yourself 6-8 months to practice being the new you.
Yeah.
Try it on for size. See how it feels. You will know when you have that perfect persona on. You will feel it in your soul.
Yeah, I love the concept of sitting with the discomfort, because that's uncomfortable. So uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But being willing to be uncomfortable and totally detaching the discomfort from your value, right, is so critical. Because I firmly believe that everyone on the call, there's some things, it's not even just one thing, that you are meant to do in the world and contribute in the marketplace, again, career or business, in a way that nobody else can.
Yes.
And the doors will open and the stars will align and all of those things, but you have to be willing to kind of go through the dark places and sit with that discomfort. And I remember there were times where I would be like, okay, well, I'm going to try to say it this way. And let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
They still look kind of weird. Let me try it this way. So the next person who would come up, I'd have a whole different like elevator pitch.
Yes.
That part landed, but this part didn't, So, but it did require being okay with being uncomfortable and allowing the feedback to come and just seeing it as feedback and not as failure and not as, you suck or, any of that kind of stuff, and being willing to be in that space.
100%.
That's really helpful. So let's get into, because I want people to make the connection to the whole sales idea. So in your book, you talk about you have a 5-step process when it comes to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And again, folks, we're not just talking about, getting your prospect to, close a deal if you're in business. This is about enrolling people for whatever you need as part of your transition into your perfect work. It could be enrolling your spouse into doing the dishes, so that now you have your Fridays free to do whatever you need to do for your business or, whatever. So let's talk about, give us a quick overview, kind of lay out what those 5 steps are, and then let's kind of go back and deal with them one at a time.
Sure thing. So there are 5 steps, and this is sort of, if you read any sales book, they're going to give you a formula. And this is my very boiled down formula for sales for life, not necessarily sales for sales. So the first thing is having a plan, knowing what you want, creating a path to go get it. The second step of the formula is looking for those opportunities. They are everywhere. And I think we forget that. But without the plan, that's why you're not recognizing them. The third piece is establishing trust with those around you and listening to what they need. It is paying it forward before you ask for that help. You and I, when we first talked on the phone, we're helpaholics. We love to help other people. This is what we do. This is our life's mission. We want to embrace that helpfulness to help lift others up. Yeah. Most people are that way, though. They just don't know what their gifts are. And most of your friends want to help you and want to support you, but they don't know how. Yeah. So you've got to listen to how you can help them maybe, and then you can say very specifically what you need. Nobody does this life alone. Nobody has ever done this life alone. Know you're going to need help, embrace it. Yeah. And then you finally get to that point of where you ask for the help. That's step 4 in the formula, is asking for whatever it is. If it is doing the dishes, if it's for them to pick up the kids, if it's for your friend to actually make an introduction for you on social media or LinkedIn. But you have to be ready for the ask. And I think a lot of people, where they get afraid of sales is that ask part. Yeah. So you got to have all those other steps that lead up to it. And then finally is following up, and following up with gratitude. And this is my big piece of the platform. This is the thing that I think is the most often skipped step. Yeah. No matter what the answer, you are grateful for it. Yeah. And just like you said, when people gave you that look like, okay, that didn't land quite right, be grateful. Yeah. Thank goodness they gave you that feedback, because that's going to make you stronger.
Yeah. Let's talk about the plan. So when you're in a sales perspective, it's like, what are you planning for? I think that's the obvious question, plan for what? Yeah. What do you mean by plan in the context of sales?
Well, so there's 2 ways to look at it. Number one is if you are trying to start your practice or your business or whatever, you want to look at a business plan, obviously. But I would actually start it as a mental plan. What do you want this to look like at the end of its first year? How many people do you want to help? How many lives do you want to impact? What is your definition of success? Because it's not always going to be financial in the very beginning. It is going to be when you are on your path, financially sound and wonderful. But I think you also have to be clear on what that number is for yourself. And I think a lot of women in particular are very afraid to put that number on paper because they don't think they've earned it yet, or you don't think you deserve it yet. Listen, anybody on this call that's listening right now, anybody that's listening to this series, stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for permission. You deserve it. If you tell me you want to make $1 million next year, the answer is $1 million on the top of your plan. Go for it. Push for that. So that's part of the plan. And then the second piece is planning for who can help. And planning for what that path looks like. So if you want to make $1 million, how many clients is that? How many events is that? Depending on what your business is, what does that look like? If you're a coach, then how many people do you need to coach to hit that number? And you have to do the math, because that's how you start to figure out how many people you need to talk to. So for instance, your friend gave you amazing advice about this particular series. To get 20, you needed to talk to 100. And that sounds daunting, but that's actually really good sales math.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of a 5 to 1, and it always has been. So, if you need 20 clients this year, you probably need to talk to 100 people that might be potential clients. And then you start to be able to look for them everywhere. But if you don't have that number in your head, or you don't have that plan, it makes it so much harder to execute, because then you really are floundering. Then you're out there just searching. Can I coach you? Can I coach you? Can I coach you? You're not honed in on what it is you're looking for.
I think this is, I love the context around it, because I think for a lot of us, we don't realize what it really takes to make the shift.
Yeah.
Right. And pivots, career pivots, pivoting into a business or whatever, it's not complicated. It's actually pretty simple, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of folks, we don't realize how much work it actually takes, how many people we actually have to talk to or have conversations with to then even be able to get to the level where we're even on the radar screen to make a shift or to change companies or to change functions or whatever. And so then when you get into the place of wanting to make the shift, you're not really willing to do the work because you don't know how much it really takes. Like, yeah. The fact that my mentor was like, you need 100 people, I kind of scoffed at it initially. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
But at like person 65, I was like, oh, but at 65, it made a lot of sense. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I better got 40 or 37 or 30. I can't do the math. 30,
whatever.
5 more people go, right? And so anyway, but it gives you staying power.
Yeah.
When you know what it actually takes for you to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're making a pivot into a place you've never been, the only way you're going to figure that out is to go to the people who are there and ask them, what did it take for you to get here? Mm-hmm. And you might have 15, 20 conversations with different people in order to even be able to get an idea of what your vision could potentially be. And that's not the work that we do up front. And so then we get 2, 3 little rejections. And now we are like, oh, well, I guess I can't do it. And I need to stay where I'm at and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you talk to 3 people.
That's nothing. That's nothing.
But if you know going in what that plan should look like, it just changes and reframes just how you feel as you're going through the process. I think that's just so critical. It's a huge misstep.
Agreed.
So you talk about step 2 is looking for the opportunity.
So you cannot look if you do not have that plan. So for instance, when your friend told you you needed 100, my guess is you already had a list of probably 25.
Mm-hmm.
Then you needed to find 75 more. So I'm going to guess that when you started talking to the 25, you asked for recommendations. You asked for referrals.
Yeah.
You asked your network. You started looking for the opportunity when you caught a glimpse of something in someone that you were talking to, even in the line at the coffee shop. You maybe asked if they knew somebody.
Yeah.
You were ready when the opportunity presented itself because you had a plan. But I think what ends up happening without that plan is you let that opportunity pass you by. Or, and I'm going to be blunt for just a second with everybody, you think you're better than you are. And I'm just going to be honest about this because we have this feeling that we know we have a gift to give. It's like, why aren't people getting it? Why don't they see it? It's because it's not for them right now. Doesn't mean it won't be for them later, but it just because you have this amazing thing does not mean it's perfect for that moment for that person. Yeah. And I think we have to recognize the numbers game that goes with that. And so giving yourself permission to expand that target list, to expand that network. And then the other cool thing about that is those other 75 or 80 people that aren't on this series, they know who you are. They know the work that you're doing. They know your mission. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. That's nothing but marketing. That's awesome. Yeah. So it's not time lost by any means. Yeah. Those are now people that can tell a story about you. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I think this is really critical, especially for folks, because I hear it often. If people are going in, it's funny, I had a conversation with someone a couple months ago, and it was a potential client, and she was looking to make a pivot, and she had been with her company for a few years, so she knew how to do that role, and she was getting promoted and really doing great there. And so she started to put her feelers out. And now, mind you, this girl's bad, the MBA, this, that, and the other. And I remember her saying, she's like, yeah, I mean, I went on a couple interviews, and I gotta say, it shook my confidence because, like, she got rejected, like they didn't give her a role. And And there was this idea, well, I'm sorry, but don't you know who I am? And
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
and up until that point, everything else had
Been
come really easy to her. And that's not to say that it shouldn't have come easy to her, right? But sometimes when you're making major shifts, it's not always so easy. It's different. You know, you've got a track record over here that's impressive, but you may not have the same track record over there. Doesn't mean you can't do the job, doesn't mean you shouldn't do the job, but it may mean that it's a little bit harder for people to latch on.
Yeah.
You know, and so knowing what the plan, you know, the plan is and the expectation, and getting behind the numbers games, it allows you, A, for your ego not to get in the way of the dream, but then B, not to get discouraged, you know, and then start questioning whether or not this is really right direction for you.
And you know, the looking for opportunities piece is also important, because if you've got that plan, you're on heightened spidey sense awareness too. And so your friend, like, that's a perfect example, is her confidence was shaken, but she had a plan. She knew that she could still pay attention when she was out at a cocktail party, or she was at the gym and she heard somebody. Like, I mean, if anybody mentions the word sales within 5 rows of me on an airplane, I'm like, where are they? Where are they? You know, what can I do? What can I do? So you know that it's sort of like when you're looking for the purse, like the purse of your dreams or something, you start looking at everybody's handbag.
Yeah.
You will have that in you, and just know the path is longer than you probably anticipate in the beginning. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay.
Yeah. It's, as they say, the days are long, but the years are short.
Absolutely.
Oh. And I think it's so brilliant. I think for most of us, it does take a lot longer than we think it does. But then when you look back at the things you never started, and had you started the thing at the time, like, it, just start. Anyway,
but I'm absolutely with you. And it's having the courage to take the first step.
Yeah.
And I think, and just as a quick sidebar, have a community around you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it's one person that is like, you're not crazy, you know, go with this, go with what you have in your heart. Like, even if you have that one person, and I think you'll find your community as you start to go in that place. But remember, you may be outgrowing the community you've been in.
Mm.
And that's really hard, because you're doing something that's disruptive. You're not staying home, having babies, and, you know, doing a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You're now going to work from home and be your own boss and work virtually. Like, that doesn't fit with the reality with some of the people around you. So they may not be able to help you.
Yeah.
You may need to get out of that network to find the people who can actually help you on your path.
Got it. So number 2 was look for opportunities. Step 3 was to establish trust with the people who can help you. Tell us about that.
So I think one of the things that happens when we get really excited about a mission or a vision is I see you and I'm like, oh, yes, this is a person that can, get this message out. Yeah. But what's in it for you? What's in it for that other person? And making sure that that person realizes that you have their best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. And this is where you pivot from being Johnny Two Thumbs to being an authentic person in selling. Yeah. Is you are being authentic, that I'm not going to sell you something you don't need. My clients know that. In fact, I was on the phone with somebody earlier today, and I recommended against them getting more coaching hours. I'm like, baby bird needs to leave the nest. You're good. Like, go. And I think we sort of get a little bit over our skis sometimes, because we see, oh, here's the chance. Here's that opportunity. I see it. Okay, let me go for it. Pause. Listen to that other person and see what they need, and see how them helping you actually benefits them. Mm. And then that changes the way you end up asking for help too. Because if it's all about you, they feel that. I mean, we've all been there where somebody comes to you and it's like, okay, and why would I want to do this? Like, why am I going to open my database I've spent 25 years crafting to give you a shot? Like, how does that do something for me? You have to think about the exposure and the risk to the person that you're asking, and the fact that literally all the stars have to align as well. Mm-hmm. So establishing that trust. And this is the other piece where they'll want to continue to help you because they know you're going to be a good steward of their help. Yeah. And so I think this is where you really start to build your community and your network, where you establish trust with someone and they're going to take it seriously and be a good representative. Yeah. And then they have a story to tell. So very similar to the folks that you had talked to about this particular series. Mm-hmm. They are carrying the flag for you now. Yeah. Like, that's amazing. Yeah. And it's because they trust you. They know that you're doing this the right way. It's not just, I need guests for this thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking for a perfect fit for them and for you. Everybody wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really important about this step, and I think many of us neglect the step or just are sometimes ignorant to the step, is that it's important to establish trust oftentimes before you need to ask for the help. And so, and this will be a recurring theme that folks will hear often in some of these conversations. We can get so busy with doing life and doing work, and it's understandable because there's so much that's urgent that needs to be tended to in the moment. But this whole idea of establishing trust with people is so important, and it's usually important when it's not important.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. 100%.
And so, finding, if you know that, that you're at a place and you're going to want to make pivots and all of that, start looking around at the people who you have connection with, your colleagues, your alumni folks, and people that you're connected to on social media, whether your only connection is social media or there's personal. Find ways that you get to serve them. And if that just means that, oh, so-and-so launched a book or whatever, go buy the daggone book and spend the $10, or if they're going to do Amazon bestseller and it's 99 cents, go get it and do a snapshot of it and really like celebrate other people and create opportunities and wins for them, because when you need them, it's too late to then be trying to foster that.
Yeah.
And that's critically important, because you're going to need so many people on the journey to creating work you love. And if you haven't begun to do it now, that is okay. Start to
today.
Be really strategic about, who are the top 20 people that I think, could really support me, and I need to start investing and giving into them right now. And start following them and finding out what's going on in their world. It could be personal, it could be professional, but figure out how to give your way to get what you need. I can't stress it enough. The fourth one you said is ask for what you want.
Hardest step, even for seasoned sales pros. And I've coached a lot of salespeople in my career. I've coached a lot of non-salespeople. And this is a step where everybody falls down because it is so hard. You could do everything perfectly up till this step. You could have given and given and given and given and given. And then when it gets to the point where you'd ask for help, you just chicken out. Like we all just end up chickening out.
Mute.
And part of the problem with it is you haven't practiced how you want to ask, I think is part of it. But it is when that fear of rejection, that monster starts bubbling up inside of you and you're like, but if they say no, our friendship is over.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not over. This isn't the end of the world. And so like we had talked about earlier, preparing for that. But I think if you plan your ask, it helps. And it's funny because we do this with really important stuff in our life. Think about a wedding proposal, marriage proposal. The person proposing has thought through it.
Yeah.
This is an important ask. They have rehearsed it. I mean, we actually had a friend who, before he proposed, practiced on my husband and I. It was very cute. And I was like, okay, you're good. You got this. Go for it. But it's funny because when it comes to something like this, I think we skip over the practice because it's a personal relationship. Like, oh, well, she knows me so well. She knows me so well, or we've been friends for years, of course. And this is what I meant earlier, which is maybe you're not there yet. You're not as good as you think you are just yet. Like you have to convince them. You have to sell them on wanting to support you. You absolutely deserve this. Whatever it is you want, whatever is in your heart, you deserve it, but you got to ask for it.
Yeah.
And the example that I would give is when you were a kid, your parents didn't just automatically raise your allowance.
Yeah.
You had to make a case for it. You had to show the behavior ahead of time. If your job was to mow the lawn, you had to mow the lawn without being asked.
Yeah.
Give to get. And so then when you got to the ask, you kind of had your evidence stockpiled. It was like, well, I brushed my teeth every night and I went to bed at 8:30 and I did all my homework and please, you make your case. And I think we skip over that planning to make our case because they're personal relationships.
That's true. That's very, very true. I love that. And then the last process here is on follow-up. And I mean, this point actually surprised me because assets are. And this point actually surprised me because I thought follow-up was going to be like, you know, you keep following up to close the deal, or you keep following up to get the person to, you know, to give you what you want or whatever. And so I was completely blindsided by what the follow-up actually was in a really, really great way. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you share what follow-up means in the sales process, at least the Dr. Cindy way. So.
Sure. So this is an often skipped step in sales, you know, professional sales as well, but it's the way that you're sort of paying it backwards and forward, and letting people know how much they affected you, and letting them know that they've been an important part of your path. And so one of the stories I talk about in the book is my Thanksgiving cards that I send every year. I send gratitude cards, and I personally write every one of them. And I mean, even, you know, people on my team are like, why do you write these? Like, we should outsource this. I'm like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
This is me. This is me sitting with that moment of gratitude going, oh my gosh, these people gave to me. These people helped me. These people believed enough in me. And I actually get emotional when I think back on it. And I'm sure you do too. Like, if you really sit and you think about the person that gave you your first chance in a job, or trusted you with the big presentation, or the first client that hired you when you were still figuring out who you were.
Yeah.
You get emotional about it because it's like, oh my gosh, like, you trusted me with that. That's amazing. Yeah. And so letting them know that, because number one, it's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, it makes them want to do it more.
Yeah.
Not just for you, but for others. And I'll give you a quick example. There's an author that was very kind to me as I was working on this book, and was very sweet about just sort of pitfalls to look for and launch. And I followed up with her the other day, and I said, I just wanted to call you and tell you kind of where we were, you know, I hope that's okay. And she's like, no, I'd love to hear this. She sent me a referral for something that a program I'm going to be on. And it's like, you know, she's continuing to pay it forward, but I wanted her to hear. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to thank her.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank her for believing in me, and thank her for supporting me. And I think we don't do enough of that. And in this book launch, I've written a ton of guest articles. And the number one article that has been reposted and republished the most is on the value of a thank you. So I think it shows you where we are as a society too. We're thirsty for that.
Awesome. So just to give us some context, even, how many, like, let's just look back on this past Thanksgiving, you know, iteration. How many cards did you send out?
There were over 400.
Wow, that were handwritten
by me.
And how long did it take you? I wanted to ask for the numbers because I wanted to, one, I wanted to know, but two, I wanted everyone to really see that, no, this is real.
Yeah, it was about almost 30 hours total.
Wow.
Because I don't just sign my name. It's not just a one sentence like, hey, thanks for this. I really sit and kind of reflect on it before I write the message, because I think about my journey with this person. Some of these people I haven't seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
But I want them to know the impact they had on me. Because like we said in the very beginning of this, every path I went on to get here has shaped who I am today and the gifts I'm able to give now. I want those people to know they were a part of it. Even the college professors that I worked with, or my professor that was my college professor for my dissertation. I was emailing with them this morning. Like, I want you to know you had a huge piece in this.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, because that helped shape the gift I'm able to give to the world today.
That is so awesome. How then this is just a logistical question, I guess, because obviously you've got to get these folks their address, because these are handwritten notes. These aren't emails and, you know, send out cards or, you know, whatever. So I'm sure at this point you have kind of like a process or a ritual when you are encountering people to then be able to have that information when you need it. What do you do for that?
So I love thank you notes anyways. Like, in a former life, I probably owned a Hallmark store or something, because I love cards. But for me, it's about the way I keep in touch, and it's something I practice. So it's not just once a year. It's that, you know, like the author that I was mentioning earlier, something came up that reminded me of her and I wanted to thank her. It wasn't Thanksgiving. It was yesterday. It was like 3 days ago. So I want to be able to keep in touch. So I try to do that. It's something that I kind of try to practice what I preach, but I also am very diligent about making sure I have people's contact information and that I do keep up with them. So if I notice that somebody has moved their office, I make a note, I put it in, I keep everything in Outlook and in our database. But I will also tell you, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Just the fact of getting those ready. Yeah. My office manager and I probably spent 5 or 6 iterations just on the list, just to get the labels right, to get the addresses printed. So there is a huge dedication. I mean, even, Tressa, who designs the cards for me on my team, like all of these pieces that fit together, that's not in the 30 hours. 30 hours is just me writing. There's another 10 or 15 way before that. But if you think about it, let's say it was 50 hours total. 50 hours to be able to reflect on the entire year that I had and the people that affected that's nothing.
Yeah. No.
It's really nothing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, absolutely. So as we prepare to close out, the spirit of generosity continues, and Cindy certainly has a free gift to offer everyone that's listening on the call. So share with us a little bit about that, and then I'll share with them how they can access it.
Fantastic. So what I want you to be able to do is be able to know that you can sell and that you do this well, and that whether you recognize it or not, you're selling every single day. And so I have a bonus chapter that I had written on personal branding. And I think this is especially important for women who are looking for that moment to pivot. And it helps you to know how to tell your story so that your network can help you. So I want to offer that to anybody that has been on this series with us. And they can contact me directly at drcindy@drcindy.com. And I will be glad to send it out to them right away. And then if they purchase the book on the Dr. Cindy website, they just need to put in, actually, I'm going to have them put in perfect work, and we'll go ahead and send it to them as well. But I don't want them to have to do anything for it. Actually, for your followers, I want them to get that no charge whatsoever.
Awesome.
I give to
I'm
them.
so excited. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so generous. Thank you for being so open. I've got like notes, pages of stuff written down. So I so appreciate that. And I think I'll speak for Cindy and myself to everyone that's listening in. We appreciate you being here. We hope that it was a blessing to you and encouragement. We hope it was challenging in a way, but also that you're equipped to be like, wow, you know what? I can make pivots, and I can get buy-in, and I can sell who I am. And if it's only just taking, those baby steps, but get the daggone book. Every job is a sales job. Just get it. But again, on behalf of Cindy and myself, we want to just thank you. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.